Hello, everybody, and welcome back. This is Grayson Harris, and today we are pleased to be joined by Richard Glover. He is the CEO of the Central Florida Zoo and Botanical Gardens. Richard, thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me on, Grayson.
Well, it's a bit in the name, but can you tell me a little bit more about what makes, the Central Florida Zoo and Botanical Gardens unique?
Sure. There's a lot of things. One of which we are a property that sits on Florida wetlands. It's very low lying, so there's a very natural feel to our zoo that you don't get at a lot of larger city zoos. You're walking through a lot of trees, a lot of lush areas, and boardwalks instead of a lot of concrete paths most places. So definitely that. And we are a zoo that is really focused on both kind of the Florida area wildlife and then wildlife around the world. We also have a second campus that's about 30 miles away that is strictly conservation work. We breed and re-release eastern indigo snakes and striped newts into their native territories, both here in Florida and in Alabama and in Georgia.
And I'd love if you give me some more context about a zoo that is structured as a nonprofit. I think a lot of people may not necessarily understand that when visiting your zoo.
It's true. So a lot of people think of zoos and assume that they're city run, state run, something like that. And there are some that are like that. But a lot of us are 501(c)(3) nonprofits that are running these zoos. And it's a very interesting model because a zoo is a very expensive business to run. When you look at a traditional nonprofit, you've got your office space and your personnel and the services that you're offering. We also have vet care and food for a lot of animals, many of which at some point in their life, they're aging and may have medical needs that create substantial costs in terms of medications and special food and diet. We also have a dietitian that is a specialist that is a contractor for us that literally looks at the diet for every single animal here, 350 animals, and they all have individual diets. So you can imagine that's not cheap.
Yeah, they're eating better than us, huh?
They are. Sometimes I want their snacks.
Amazing. Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you stepped into this role at the zoo as a CEO right around about 4 years ago, correct?
Yeah, it was April of 22.
Amazing. Tell me a little bit more about what that transition looked like as you kind of stepped into this role. You have a background within, the aquarium and kind of zoo space already, but I
Yes.
know kind of stepping into the more CEO seat. I think this was one of the first times, correct?
It was. It was my first CEO role, and it's something that I had a lot of training and preparation for, so I was comfortable stepping into it and felt ready. Yeah, I certainly had my challenges the first year. 6 months in, we had Hurricane Ian. The zoo, property flooded. We were closed for 28 days.
Trial by
Definitely learned
fire.
real quick to deal with crisis here and things like that, but coming into the role, I think the biggest challenge was I inherited a team where a lot of the people on the team had been promoted because 'cause they'd been here a long time and had never been given the professional development and training they needed to really do the positions a lot of them were in. And so it's
Hmm.
been an interesting transition trying to bring the team to the level that they needed to be, get people individually where they needed to be while keeping the train going the whole time.
I love that you brought that up, right? And it sounds like that training, especially that executive leadership training that you received, was so instrumental within your role. And I know a lot of nonprofit organizations, in terms of talent, right? It's difficult to retain and build talent within the nonprofit space. I would love if you could give some examples of how nonprofit leaders that are tuning in can within their organization. It sounds like you've had some success now in these 4 years in terms of getting people in the right seat and kind of building those skills. And I think you've even had some people move on as well. So, like, tell me a little bit more about how you're internally thinking about that and how nonprofits can incorporate that into their teams as well.
Sure. I think, coming in, I'm a big believer you give everyone a chance on their own. So I sat back for about 6 months, learned the organization. And one of the things I found was this is an organization that had not given professional development to people. It's not an investment they made. And in today's world, your workforce wants that. It's not like the old days where they just wanted their paycheck and go home, or especially in nonprofits. People are here because they believe in a mission and they want to be part of something. Yes, we don't pay as well as some jobs do other places. So we have to find other ways to get people to stay. And we can't just assume that because they believe in the mission, that's going to always be enough. And that's the mistake a lot of nonprofits makes. We decided to invest in trying to give more professional development to our leadership and not just we'll send you to a conference, but actually bringing people in to do professional development. The second year I was here, we brought in someone to do communication training with the leadership staff. And it was fantastic. I mean, it opened a lot of eyes for people. It was the first time that that investment had been made in people. And we had departments work better together than they ever had because they understood how each other process things and were able to communicate with each other better. They knew how to approach people differently depending on who they were talking to. You know, really looking at where the gaps are in your leadership staff or even your staff as a whole. This year, we brought in someone to do guest experience training for the entire staff. You know, looking at where those gaps are and figuring out what can you do to help that. And some of that is bringing people in, and that's costly. I mean, it's sending to people to conferences is costly. So for most of us nonprofits, you really have to look at price and figure out and prioritize. But also, there are things out there that aren't expensive. In our area, your library system, if you go and get a library card, you automatically get free LinkedIn Learning. So then we
Oh,
can create a path for people like young leaders. Here are things you can take on LinkedIn Learning to accelerate your learning about having hard conversations and different things that can be individualized, and we're actually not spending any money on that. So there's a lot of different ways to attack this, and I think depending on the size of your nonprofit, you have to look at that differently. But certainly, you know, the first thing you've got to do is look and go, where do we have gaps? Whether it's individually within the leadership team or whether it's as a whole as a group. And you have to be
incredible.
honest. You can't have the rose-colored glasses. Go, oh no, we're great. You know that's everybody can improve.
Understood. Thank you very much for that answer. And a follow-up to that, and something that came to my mind, how do you view incentivizing this learning and this engagement and, these building of skills, right? Because it's gonna be a benefit, obviously, for the organization, and, obviously, getting the extra skills will be a benefit for the workers too. How do you go about, though, incentivizing them to do those LinkedIn Learning courses?
So we've been very fortunate so far. We've actually been having this conversation internally for the last few weeks about incentivizing because we do know at some point we'll need to. We haven't been because we haven't needed to. I mean, the
Okay.
truth is at pretty much all levels, our teams are really wanting more professional development, more opportunities to learn. And when we do our annual employee survey, a lot of the things we survey about are, you know, what would you like to see in terms of professional development?
Got
What
it.
would make you feel included here? What, you know, and as we did that, we really started to learn they do want more opportunities, and some of those are job shadowing that they can do here on site. I want to understand what another team does. I want to
Yay.
go to another institution and see what they do so I can bring that information back. We haven't had for our team so far, for the most part, getting the training and the opportunities has been the incentive. But when you do get to a lot of the online learning and the things that start to become very this again,
More
yeah, then you do have to look at how do we incentivize it? What do we do with that? And are we asking them to do that on the clock, or are we basically giving them extra hours to do that that we're paying them, but it's not part of their normal job? So you really have to start looking at that and looking for, you know, what can we give them because you can't tell everyone if you do this number of courses, you're getting promoted. That's not gonna happen. So and we are nonprofits. You can't say, "Okay, you do these courses and we're gonna give you a $100 gift card," because that may or may not be reasonable either, but sometimes
understood.
it's experiences. I mean, sometimes for us as a zoo, we have the advantage, you know, "Hey, if you finish all these, you get to do a rhino encounter." You know, so
Yeah.
it can be something within your organization sometimes where you have
Mm.
access to an experience that doesn't have to cost anything, but that people wanna do, and they'll do the work because of it.
I love that. And it from what it sounds like in terms of how what can be replicated in that, one way that you are incentivizing it is really getting bought in from your employees because you're asking what their thoughts are in terms of
Yes.
where do you want to see training? Where are you looking to improve? And then you're using that in terms of the strategy, right? So I think in terms of a way that nonprofits can replicate it, that's something that comes to my mind right off.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important thing. I mean, I think, you know, when I came into this organization and we started doing our surveys, first survey we did, we realized there were some comments around feeling included at work, feeling heard, policies, even dress policies and things like that that people didn't love. And we did a follow-up survey that year specifically on inclusion because we realized how important that is. I mean, in today's workforce, people want to feel like they can be their authentic selves and be accepted and respected and appreciated. And so, you know, we see that in two ways. We see that for our team, we see that for our guests too, because our community needs to feel the same way. As a zoo, we have this great opportunity. We can be a place everyone feels safe and appreciated, There aren't many places like that left. So that's really important to us. But leaning into that with our team, if your team feels that way, they're going to make your guests feel that way too.
I love that you mentioned that, and I was really excited to get into, something that I think you've really become known for over at the zoo are these incredible events that you put on, and really community orientated events. Can you tell me a little bit more about what the really strategy and the idea behind that was in terms of putting on these events and really aligning it with some of the culture of your city?
Sure. So one of the main ones we've done is we transformed a series we had that happened 5 months, the last Friday of every month, called Sunsets at the Zoo. We'd had them for years. They were nice family events where it's low cost and the zoo's open later, so it's cooler. The animals are active, and you add some things to it. But it was stale, and we needed to reinvent that. But also, we saw an opportunity there and said, okay, we can also use those to celebrate different communities. We can theme them and we can really dive into making each experience different each of the 5 months. And so what we did was we did. We've got a Hispanic heritage one, we've got a pride one, we've got five different themes, and each time we're celebrating different communities, we bring in food trucks that are either represent that community or are owned by someone in that community. We bring in entertainment, whether it's DJs, live entertainment, live dancers, speakers, things like that. We have nonprofits that serve those communities come and set up tables here, but we create a whole different experience each time. But what that's allowed us to do is show the community we're serious about being somewhere that's safe and welcoming to everyone and appreciates everyone. And it's opened up audiences that don't necessarily feel invited somewhere unless you expressly invite them. And there are a lot of groups that don't feel like I belong somewhere unless someone says, "Hey, come here, you belong here." And so that's allowed us to do that with some communities to really build some relationships with them, which has been great for the community, but also it's been great for us because a lot of those people will come back at other times for other events and other things. And some of them end up coming to all five of those sunsets just to experience the different food, the different cultures, and it's exposing people because they're low cost events that are accessibility events for the community. It's also exposing people that came just for the low cost to all these other communities so they can appreciate. And our team, we have a lot of members of those communities on our team. It gives them so much pride to be able to welcome the people that they feel aligned with into the zoo and celebrate them. So it's been really good for the team. It's been good for the community. And it's just, I mean, our attendance on those has more than doubled. It's just been phenomenal success.
I really appreciate that context. And as I kind of look on your site, like there's the Asian Lantern Festival that's coming up. You also have the Zoo Boo Bash, which I think is y'all's big Halloween event. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. I mean, that one's pretty much what you'd expect. It's a kid-friendly event, lots of candy, as a zoo, we have some opportunities to do some fun things. So we do a lot of our keepers do a lot of creating decorations and enrichment that we put in the animals' enclosures. And so you'll have things decorated from Halloween, but also things that then are an additional way to enrich the lives of the animals in their days and make them more interesting. So they may take a box and, really decorate it up for Halloween and put it in the exhibit of a big cat, and that big cat will tear that box apart, and it'll jump in that cat like or that box like your house cat, but it gives them something fun, and it's great for the guests to watch. It's so much fun. It's fun for our keepers to do those things and watch people interact with them. It's good for our animals. So, in addition to all the kind of normal things you'd have at a Halloween event, you've got that extra twist to it, which I think is a really nice way to get people engaged. And then we have the opportunity to tell them about the animals and the importance of why they're here.
I absolutely love that. And if you could, as we come to an end, give a final piece of advice for our nonprofit audience listening in, what would that be?
I think just, really listen. A lot of times as nonprofits, we make the assumption we know what our audiences need, we know what our employees need. Take that time to ask. Take that time to listen. I learned a long time ago, if I think I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm missing out on the best ideas. You have to realize that best ideas can come from anywhere, and the best thing you can do as a leader is listen.
Incredible. And as we come to the end of the year, how can people get more involved over at the Central Florida Zoo and Botanical Gardens?
Well, there's so many ways. So we do have a lot of these big events, including Lantern is 55 nights over 2 months. We have lots of volunteer opportunities for you people to come and get involved and volunteer here. We do have these events which are great to come to. The Asian Lantern Festival starts on November 14th, goes through January 18th. It is incredible. We've gone in 5 years from 40,000 people coming to 120,000. It's a really fantastic evening event for a family, a date night, anything like that. On top of all of that, we are in the quiet phases, the beginning phases of a capital campaign. It's our 50th anniversary on this site. So we're trying to do some things to some of the infrastructure here. We're an old and aging site. So if people want to get on our website and donate towards that, we'd be greatly appreciative. But really just come out. Let us tell you about the animals we got. We have baby Fusa, which are the largest predator on the island of Madagascar, and they're so cute, but they're about the size of a house cat. They're in the mongoose family. They're endangered, and we have 2 babies that just went out on exhibit last month. There's great things to see and just an opportunity to learn about the amazing wildlife that's around us.
Incredible, Richard. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing more about the incredible work that you're doing over at the zoo out there in Central Florida. And thank you for giving this incredible advice for our nonprofit audience as well.
Thank you, Grace. I appreciate the opportunity, and I look forward to hearing advice from other people on your podcast for sure.
Amazing.